Yeah. I guess I should go first.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, so I think eating meat is like is like a core part of my quality of life, and by that I mean like a combination of physical and mental health.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to remove like non-vegan food from my life, it would be like totally ruined. I don't think I'm obligated to give it up.
Okay, so why? I'm not necessarily arguing for veganism, but
So
I'm more arguing just for the consumption of like animals as a whole.
yeah,
So we can like I guess the same kind of lines, but and so the argument I would make to that is why is your like I guess quality of life impacted so negatively by the lack of consumption of animal meat as comparable to the animal being butchered and like being eaten and being killed?
well, I'm not really comparing myself to the animals, so
Well, your argument is that you don't have any like obligation to give up the consumption of meat
yes,
because it's negatively impacting your
yeah,
well-being.
well, me, yeah,
Okay, so to that I would argue there is a like there's a disconnect between that and how you are negatively like okay, let me put this into perspective. Would you say that your that it is moral to neglect a infant? Would you say it's moral to neglect an infant if it is negatively impacting your well-being or your life?
um,
And like just based on your own perception, not necessarily based on any outside objective reason, but just based on your own perception of life, it would be negatively impacting you. Is it morally like okay to be neglecting that child?
if it were if taking care of the kid negatively affected me, that's what you're asking.
Yes.
Um,
Based on your own perception alone, not based on any like
so
necessary objective
no like
reason.
extra context. This isn't like my kid or anything.
No, this is your kid, and
Okay, my kid.
you were the parent of the kid, and you are perceiving that child to be negatively impacting you. Why is it like okay to would you say that it is okay to neglect the child?
Um, yeah, I think because when you bring up this hypothetical, I feel like I have control over whether this child is even brought into the world in the first place.
Well, in we're past that point in the hypothetical. The
Stuff
hypothetical is
like
based
say
on
a
like
hypothetical like rape child or something. I don't know.
no, this is just a hypothetical child that exists that you take care of, that like you are the parent of, and you have begun to deem it as a negative impact on your mental well-being for whatever reason. Would you
Yeah.
say it's okay to neglect that child?
Well, I feel like the scenario is a little bit different, right? Because if it's your kid, right, you're taking like some sort of responsibility on you,
And
like what's lead.
when you're butchering and eating an animal, you're taking the responsibility of that animal's life. Because you are not the I guess future of that animal's existence is now rested upon your hands in that you have taken away its future. So you still have responsibility in both cases. I wouldn't say it's disanalogous.
Well, for one, in the scenario you presented, I'll say it is moral, or well, at least morally neutral.
Why is it morally neutral if with neglect that child, like we can confidently say like a 3-year-old is not going to be able to take care of itself?
3-year-old is not going to be
And
able to.
subsequently they are going to die from neglect.
Morally neutral. Stick
Why
to
is
it.
that morally neutral?
I haven't seen an argument for it being like a negative.
Well, that child is going to die.
Yes.
So You believe that the death of the infant is morally neutral to your perceived mental state being negatively impacted.
Yeah, because it's between me and the kid.
So again, the issue with that is, so if we take that like mental impact, we understand that child is going to inevitably grow up and no longer be an issue for you. So that's going to be a finite amount of time in which there's going to
Wait,
be
but
a
we
negative value
established,
impacted on.
but we established that the child is going to die.
No, we established the child is going to die due to neglect,
Okay.
not that it's going to die at some point in the future. Like, just regardless. Like, obviously, all people are going to die. What I'm saying is, in this analogy, I don't know if like you're misinterpreting, but what I'm saying is, if you
I
neglect
think I
that
am
child,
misinterpreting you.
that child is going to die if you neglect it. That
Yes.
is an infinitely negative uh, level of value placed upon that child's life, because it
Yes.
literally cannot go on past that point. And so now, when you take that as compared to whatever negative utility is being placed upon you, in this case, is a temporary, like, negative to your mental state, do you believe that a finite, negative utility is going to hold an equal level of value to an infinite negative utility?
Okay, so there's this problem here. I can agree that there's more negative utility to the child or animal that suffers as a result of my actions. But I don't think it necessarily means it's immoral to choose myself over that kid or animal.
Why is that?
Um, I don't think I have to objectively. Um, I say, let me put it to you this way. Let's say I have $4 in my pocket, right? And
Hmm.
let's say you've got $5 in your pocket. We
Yeah,
agree that $5 is worth more than $4, right?
correct.
Okay. I still care more about my $4 than your five.
Hmm.
Like I will take action to protect my $4 from getting like burnt up in a fire or something.
I don't
But
think that's
your five
analogous at
dollars.
all.
Why?
Because there's utter, like, the comparison of protecting your own as compared to taking away from someone else is not comparable. Because in that case, you're taking away from somebody else by perceivedly protecting what is yourself. Whereas in the protection of the $4 as opposed to the five, there is no negative utility being placed upon the other individual. You're simply just defending your $4. It's completely disanalogous.
The problem is I'm being put into a situation where I have to like force negative utility onto this other party.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
point.
because
Is
there's like a measurable harm going to come to me that is
why
going
is
to
there?
come to me as
So
a
you're
result.
saying in your analogy, the individual with $5 is going to impart like
Uh,
infinitely negative utility onto you
well,
if
not
you don't
infinite, no.
defend it. You said immeasurable, so I was just assuming that those two are going to be like
I don't
uh,
think I said immeasurable, but
comparable. Well, regardless, so if you're saying that the other individual, because if you do not defend your $4, is going to impart some sort of uh, unquantified negative utility onto you, the defense of your $4 is justified.
um, yeah. So if I'm being forced to put negative utility onto another party, it's fine for me to prioritize myself. Yeah.
So you're saying that in the case of, let's say this individual holds like $5 and is like, I don't know, let's say they are needing you for like some sort of amount of money, like they need like $1.50 or something.
Sorry.
Say.
Could you reword that in a different way?
Let's say the individual has $5 and is like $1.50 short to be able to purchase something of
Okay.
need, like insulin, because we'll just say in this instance, insulin is only like $6.50. Um, they need $1.50 more for insulin. You're saying it would be morally just to not give them $1.50, even though they're going to die if you do not, because you will lose money and that will impart a certain amount of negative
Um,
utility.
okay. So the problem here is like there's some negative utility, but I'm not like suffering, I'm losing like a buck and a half, right? Well, I'm talking about negative utility enough to the point to like ruin your life.
So, okay, so if we're going back like past the analogy with the child and back to the veganism, how are you saying that not eating meat is going to impart a negative utility enough to ruin your life?
Okay, so I eat like non-vegan food maybe 2 to 3 times a day. I've been indoctrinated since birth pretty much to eat like non-vegan food. It's a very important part of my life now, so taking it away would do.
Well, that's entirely just a subjective position in that you are unwilling to switch to a vegan or vegetarian style of diet.
Well, yeah,
like, do you eat eggs?
Earlier, like straight eggs, no.
No, I'm talking like scrambled eggs or something like that.
Crap, I lost my train of thought answering question. Well, I got to think of what I was saying.
No worries.
Okay. Could you ask me the question again, just so you can like remind me, like before that?
Okay.
Are you gonna make us recording this, by the way?
Yeah, I am. So the question is, you are saying that due to the fact that you have been eating non-vegetarian, non-vegan diet, a non-vegetarian and or non-vegan diet since birth, the removal of those, I guess, sources of nutrients would be detrimental because
to my well-being that has been defined as physical and mental health, some combination.
So the issue with that is that it is only detrimental if you are unwilling to eat vegetarian or vegan foods, which can completely fulfill the dietary needs that you have. And also, if you're talking about like flavor, we understand that the flavor of meat comes from the diet of an animal, so you can still replicate the flavor as well.
Let's talk semantics for a second, so I can agree. Yeah. Like, oh, what's up, Saucy?
Here.
Okay. We were like in the middle of the point. I was gonna say vegan food, vegetarian food. That would be like bread, vegetables, rice, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. But I could have like a chicken sandwich with bread. So what would you call that? I have.
If you had a chicken sandwich with bread.
Yeah. So that's inherently different from like just eating just vegetables and fruits or whatever, or just plants.
Well, you could replace the chicken with another source of protein. You could have bread and like.
But I'm talking about things like taste and texture.
So taste and texture. So again, that goes back to my original point. Is that like the taste of animals comes from their diet, so you can still replicate their flavors. Like, I'm trying to remember.
Well, it's not just flavor.
Well, okay. So you're talking in texture, and it is absolutely impossible for you to eat a vegetarian and vegan diet solely because of taste and texture.
Well, the reason it would be detrimental to me is because I'm giving up things like taste and texture going to a vegan diet.
Sorry, say that again.
Okay. I'm giving up taste and texture going on a vegan diet. That's the argument.
Again, the taste you can replicate because the diet is what gives the animal flavor. So you can replicate flavors using like vegetarian and vegan.
Are you talking about things like mock meats?
No, not mock meats. I'm talking like the reason animals have their certain flavor is due to the diets they have. Like the foods that they eat.
I can agree that they can ultimately like taste different ways as like a result of the way they eat, but I don't think you can like replicate a chicken sandwich with like pure vegetables.
I'm not saying just vegetables. I'm talking like
or fruits,
different
plants,
certain plants that you can use to help.
Does this exist?
The
like,
flavor.
I literally have no idea what you're talking about. I don't. I don't think I've ever come across a food like that or even heard of it.
What are we talking about?
I'm taking like a non-vegan stance.
I mean, specifically the food thing.
Yeah, I don't know what food he's talking about. He's saying like you can replicate taste or something.
So replicate the taste of an animal?
Yeah,
I mean, probably, but
yeah. I know things like Beyond and Impossible Meat exist, but other than that, I don't really know
Okay,
what he's talking
so
about.
I found it, and it's a specific. So if you cook tofu like a specific way, it will taste like chicken and have similar texture.
I eat tofu pretty regularly. It's not quite the same as chicken.
Again, you have
That
to cook
can't be
it
like
a
the case
specific way.
in a
And I'd
specific
also
way.
like to ask this: why is the like value of flavor and texture greater than that of the loss of sentient life?
For one, it's like weighing two parties, myself and then the animals.
No, it's not weighing two parties. It's weighing
Well,
two
well,
levels of value. It's the negative
well, yeah,
utility
two
from
levels of value from two.
your like. l-
There's my personal value, right, and then
Yeah.
there's the animals' value, like that group. I'm attacking that group hypothetically. I am supporting the meat industry.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So again,
so
my
it's me
question
against
is,
them.
why is so you're saying that the amount of negative utility imparted on both parties is negligible and it has more to do with which party you value more, is what you're saying.
Um, yeah, I personally value myself more than them.
So because that's basically entirely subjective, I'm not really gonna take that
Well,
for as
I think
assumption.
morality is subjective.
Why do you believe morality is subjective?
I don't think there's such thing as objective morality like in a cloud somewhere. I think we make this stuff up.
That's kind of circular because without objectivity there is only subjectivity. So again, I ask, why is morality subjective?
But could you repeat that? I'm not sure
So
if we're on the same page.
so you said that morality is subjective because you think objective morality is impossible and you think that morals are just made up. Like,
I don't think you could find objective morality.
why?
If you could, um, I'd ask you to prove that. Yeah,
Well, no, you're the one currently holding the burden of proof because you made the claim that there was
I'm
only
saying I
subjective
don't think it
morality.
exists. I'm not convinced that it exists. I think
That's again, that's a
subjective
circular claim.
exists. That's all that
Saying
we.
that saying that morality is subjective and saying that you don't think objective morality exists is the same claim.
Saying I don't
So
think.
you're kind of just repeating yourself in different words.
Okay, I only think um, subjective morality exists because I have not observed objective morality.
So
I'm unconvinced of its
what do you mean
existence.
by like the observing of objective morality?
Yeah.
Like what do you
So,
constitute observation of objective morality?
if you could find it somewhere, if you can somehow
That's not
prove
what I
there's
asked.
like some
I
objective
asked like
moral
what do you
system.
constitute what do you constitute
So
as
without
like what would be a presentation
without
of
be,
objective morality?
so not being influenced by the mind.
Not being influenced by the mind? Why is the mind inherently subjective?
Um, you know the definitions of objective and subjective.
I do know the definitions, but I'm asking why is the mind inherently subjective in everything that it perceives?
Well, subjectivity is like things born of the mind, right?
Yeah, but not everything is born of the mind that the mind
Yeah,
observes.
like objective things.
So
So I don't think morality of that nature exists.
you don't think morality that exists out separate from the mind exists?
So I'm sorry, say that sentence again.
I'm asking, you said that you don't believe that morality separate from the mind exists. Like you don't believe in
Yeah,
right or wrong
I think
things
we
exist.
made all morality up. It's all subjective, born of the mind.
Hmm.
And again, I ask, why is that?
Because I am unconvinced of the existence of objective morality. I don't think you could find such a thing.
So okay, so let's see. I think with that we're just going circular on this point because
Wait,
like
hold on. Wait. Magic. A lot better way to say that, because it does sound like you're making it circular, is say, and rather than I'm unconvinced that objective morality is like the case or whatever, just say that I don't think you can make the claim that objective. So we can't say that morals are objective, but don't say that they aren't objective because you can't say that they just say that because you can't say it, the only position you can take is subjectivity. I think that's what you're trying to say, but it sounds really circular the way you're wording it. Yeah.
I can't lie. You're probably no. I'm certain you're more like articulate than I am, but like I am more confused.
Magic. I think what he's trying to say is you can't say morals are objective, therefore you can only say they're subjective. I think that's what he's trying to say.
Well, if that's the case, then he would be like agreeing with me because I'm saying morals are subjective.
No, I'm saying that's what you're saying. Now it's like on Nameless to say whether he agrees with that or not.
so
But you said magic. He's saying X, Y, Z. So
Oh, my bad. I meant to say what Magic is trying to say is
Okay.
such and such.
okay. So I guess like the presentation of like if you really just want me to like prove that morals are objective in a sense, I guess like the best method I could go about doing that would probably be like let me think. I guess it would just be the fact that like a subjective like moral truth would not be able to be what's called subjective morals themselves would kind of just collapse on their own concept because they wouldn't be able to fulfill themselves in any way. Like certain like things you claim to be moral truths in a subjective like in a subjective moral world would not be substantial. Like they
so
wouldn't be able to hold themselves together.
so you're
Like
saying like subjective morality goes out the window if we find this objective morality hypothetically.
so what I'm saying is that the reason morals can't be subjective is because certain things, like you can claim a truth in moral subjectivity to be true without any like what's the term? It's like in moral subjectivity, a claim that is like kind of self-destructive. Like let's say you say that murder is moral because morality is subjective. Would you agree that like we ought to do the right things and avoid the wrong, or no?
Um, Given that murder is morally correct, I'd say do the morally incorrect thing.
So if we do, why would you say that like we ought to do the morally incorrect thing? If we're saying like,
And
would that
I
not just
personally
so if we're
don't
saying
like
we ought to do the morally incorrect thing because the morally correct thing is for whatever reason wrong in your eyes, would we not then say that the morally correct thing is immoral?
I want to make sure we're on the same page. So we've established that murder, it's just a given that it's like morally correct. Did I understand that right?
So what we're saying is if you make the claim that murder is moral, would you agree that we ought to do the right thing? Or if we ought, like if there is no oughts about morality and we avoid what is considered the morally correct thing, would it then just not be considered morally correct anymore? Or if avoiding it due to its perceived negative connotation?
Okay. I don't really see how this is relevant. We're not talking about like ought questions. We're just talking about like whether things are morally right.
Well,
in the
this is
first
like,
place.
yeah, this is part of the whole like thing with morals is if we're saying that murder is in this subjective worldview correct, like it is morally correct, do you think that we should do the morally correct thing in this instance?
No.
Okay, so then if we should not be doing the morally correct thing, why shouldn't we be doing it?
Okay. I think you're a bit confused here. So what I said is no in response to your question, right? But that's not me saying we ought to not do that.
You
It's just
said
me being
no in
like
my
answer.
I asked you if we should do the
You're
morally
asking me
correct
if
thing.
I like
You said
hold
no,
a
right?
certain opinion, right? Do
I
I think
asked
so
no,
and so
I asked you, should we, so if murder is the morally correct thing in the subjective worldview, should we do it? And you said no. Correct?
earlier, but then you like changed the wording up a little bit. Then it
No,
became a different thing.
that's what I said this whole time. But regardless of whether or not that is the case, that is the question I'm asking you. If I switched up the wording before, I apologize, but that is the question I'm asking. If murder is considered the morally correct thing in the subjective worldview, should we do it?
In the subjective world. So a hypothetical world where everyone believes subjectively that that murder is moral, then no.
Okay, why should we not do it?
I don't think it follows that just because something is morally correct that you should do it.
Why?
I haven't been given a reason to think that it's the case.
You know what moral means? Like, what the term moral means? It means like, well, that's kind of a dumb question. It means like correct, or like moral and immoral is right and wrong. So if we're saying that murder is the right thing to do, why are you saying that like we shouldn't necessarily do the right thing?
I just don't think it follows. I don't think you could prove that you ought to do something because it is morally correct based off of like a subjective statement, purely subjective. You did say it was like a subjective worldview.
So what I'm saying is that you have not given me an actual reason yet as to why we shouldn't follow the like morally just path. You have just said that
I think we're on different pages.
You just said that we aren't obligated.
Saucy, are you following this? Are you here?
I think I understand
No,
what
I don't
Magic's
think
trying
so.
to say. Like, do you want
He's
me to
not.
like
Who
try
else
to
is
put
here?
it like in a different way?
Good question.
Yeah, am I muted? Oh my god. Yeah.
Anybody?
Hold up.
Oh, okay.
Ah, hold up. Can you? Motherfuck.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh
Or
shit.
Is
Can
that
you hear me?
SRW?
Fuck.
I think so.
Is my mic is messing up? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I think I understand what Magic is trying to say. Do you want me to like explain it in a different way?
And go ahead.
So what I think Magic is trying to say is like just because something like is morally sound, that doesn't mean like you have to do it, right? So like, it would be morally justified to like raise your hand while crossing the street. That doesn't mean that you should have to raise your hand every time you cross the street. It just means that it's the right thing to do while crossing the street. But if you don't do
Yeah,
it, then
okay.
that doesn't make you
So
immoral.
that doesn't answer the question I asked though. I asked why you shouldn't murder.
No,
If
I'm not saying you shouldn't. That's like an affirmative no. I'm saying
you literally
it doesn't
said
have to be the case. Well, that's what I understood your question to mean the second time around because you reworded it.
so, I'm confused. Are you taking an entirely ambiguous stance on like the whole concept?
Well,
Or
you asked the new question, like whether you were aware of it or not. You reworded your question and then it like completely transformed it.
all right. Well, anyway, I just feel like if you'd have like any congruency with like the opinions that you
Sorry, what was that word? Any what?
congruency.
Congruency.
Yeah. So like if
Okay.
your position here, you're saying you're kind of like remaining relatively ambiguous. And so I'm gonna try and ask like this question again. If not, I'll go to another line of reasoning. Should we or should we not murder if it is the right thing to do in the
Okay.
subjective worldview?
So
I
I
want
did
you to
answer
answer specifically if we should or should not murder.
I could just like not have a stance on that. I think I could be neutral
So?
because there's one claim, it is morally correct or incorrect, and then there's a normative claim that you ought to do it or you ought not to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I only believe one of those things to be true in this hypothetical.
Which one of those do you believe to be true?
So the former. So it's a given. It's a given that murder is like morally correct here. Yeah, I'll just believe that.
So you believe?
Yeah, in the hypothetical you set up, you just said, okay, everyone subjectively believes murder is morally correct. In that case, I just would believe murder is morally correct.
All right, so guess I'll go to this line of argument, but I would argue that because your entire position is based on the subjective view, that you can't actually hold a what's called a like logically sound argument on the topic due to its subjective nature. And due to it basically being like a because I said so.
Because okay, no, I think all morality is subjective. We're having a debate about morality.
Yeah, I know,
Like,
and that's what I'm saying. Is like the idea of like your position being subjective on it. Like the idea that morality is subjective means that your like your opinion on morality would kind of like this like it would kind of be self-destructive due to the nature of it being subjective and entirely based upon.
I feel like you. Hold on, I feel like you would accept subjective.
Back it up.
You would accept or reject subjective claims. That is a mouthful. You would accept or reject subjective claims in a morality debate, like going into it.
So again, like my whole thing is
Yeah.
like, regardless of whether or not like someone may or may not accept or reject a subjective claim, I think that like this is kind of like my argument against it is that a argument for subjective morality basically removes any ability to logically reason your argument.
Well, in that case, you're taking the pro-vegan stance, right?
I'm just saying that you shouldn't like slaughter and eat most animals.
Well, yeah, that's a subjective claim too.
Why
I could also say that's not true. What?
Why is it subjective? You haven't even heard my like full reasoning yet. But besides the fact that you shouldn't kill sentient life, like non-consensually, of course. Like, do you believe in this case that like consent is entirely subjective as well?
Consent?
Yeah.
No, I think consent can be objective.
Why?
Because you can say it out loud. You can make an objective claim that you hold a subjective stance, and that's a different thing.
I'm sorry.
You can say
that you can hold.
Well, let me put it to you this way.
That you hold an objective.
Nameless. Let me put it to you this way. I can make the claim that pizza is good, right? And that's subjective.
Mm-hmm.
But if I were to make the claim, I hold the belief that pizza is good. That's an objective claim. It speaks to my subjective opinion.
So I still think that that like claim would be subjective due to the nature of the subject matter being subjective as well.
No, okay. That's not true. Okay.
I think it would be due to the very nature of the fact that like your claim is entirely mind dependent, and if your mind can be changed, that means that you will not necessarily.
No, I'm referring to something that is mind dependent, but I'm objectively referring to myself holding that subjective viewpoint.
So, like, sure, you can refer to yourself in the objective sense, but you can't refer to the like opinion you hold to be a
Yeah,
in
again, like
just
that's how that's how you would even have like a debate in the first place about like a subjective thing. I'm telling you objectively that I hold so and so stance, right?
hmm
That's different from me saying so and so stance is true.
So,
I'll just like make the comparison again, analogy. I say
go ahead.
pizza is good, subjective. But
Mhm.
saying somebody holds the belief subjectively that that pizza is good is an objective claim, whether or not you can falsify it.
So whether or not you can, if it can be falsified, then it's not objective anymore. That kind of negates the
no,
point
the
of it
false.
being
I'm
objective.
saying being able to falsify it is irrelevant. Don't worry about it.
Why is that irrelevant to the topic? Like, why is that irrelevant to the point? If it
I
can be
don't know why it would
falsified,
be
so
relevant.
can be. It's no longer objective.
It's just something you might think of when you think about like objective claims, but it's not important to my position at all.
Why wouldn't it be important? You're claiming that a claim can be objective regardless.
My
of
claims
whether
have like
it's
nothing to do
falsifiable.
with because my claims have nothing to do with being able to find something and observe it like empirically.
So okay.
Yeah, it's not about like detecting and measuring something.
No, but so you're saying that the entirety, like the entire objective claim, is not based in the ability to measure or quantify the claim in any way, shape, or form? I'm very confused because you just said that like any sort of measurement of
quantify the claim and quantifying something you're referencing inside the claim is a different thing.
so again, like I'm incredibly confused because you just referred to the objective claim not being quantifiable in any way, shape, or
Okay.
form.
The objective claim is that I hold this subjective position. It
Right.
is the case. It is true that I think so and so is true.
So, and the ability to falsify that would kind of negate its subjectivity, would it not?
We're not talking about falsification. I said it was irrelevant.
Okay. Well,
I just kind of said
you
that
just
like
said
out
that
of
it
the
was.
blue. I'm sorry it like threw you off, but it's not important.
You said that it's irrelevant, but I think it's entirely relevant to the subject of whether or
No,
not
because you can
something.
make an objective claim that's unfalsifiable. There exists
Kind of the
a
point
realm
of
outside.
subjective claims.
I can demonstrate this to you if you disagree. There's a realm outside of human observation that's an objective claim. You can't falsify it though.
How's it an objective claim?
Okay, it's not like an opinion or something subjective born in the mind, right?
hmm I mean,
Yeah, it's something that it's about whether something exists or not. That statement would have a truth value.
well, all statements have a level of truth value. That doesn't inherently make them objective.
I don't think all subjective. I don't think. Yeah, I don't think
If you don't think all
subjective
subjective points,
statements. Yeah, have
wait,
truth.
did you
I
say
don't
that?
think you could like. I don't think it could be true that pizza is good. I think you could subjectively believe that pizza is good.
So
I
you
don't
don't think it can
like
be true?
prove
Okay, so
pizza
I
is good.
think your admission that it can't be true kind of negates the idea of subjectivity alone, like being possible.
Yeah,
In
but you kind of accept the
sense of
notion
morality.
that you would either accept or reject like certain moral ideas going into a morality debate. Otherwise, like you'd be wasting your time.
I disagree. Because I think that like the
To,
entire notion of
to
something being able to be true or false in a subjective sense kind of negates its objectivity in the discussion of like right and wrong, or subjectivity, sorry, in the discussion of right or wrong, because right or wrong is based on things being true and false.
No, I disagree.
Why would you disagree?
I think you could have certain premises in a moral claim that are true or false, but the moral claim itself is not true or false.
I'm so confused. Say that again?
You could have a premise within a moral claim that is true or false, but
Yeah.
the claim itself as a whole is not true or false. I'll just use like a subjective claim as a comparison. Let's say
Wait, so time out. You're saying that a part of a
I'll just give you an example.
Okay, go
Make it
ahead.
easier. Let's say I make some guy up. Let's call him Tom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I think Tom is a good football player. Say that's my opinion. Turns
Yeah.
out Tom doesn't play football. You see what I'm getting at?
So if he does not play football, he cannot be labeled a football player.
Yeah. So within that moral claim, you're making an objective assertion that Tom is a football player. Right.
An objective assertion.
Claim, but the claim is still
assertion that
subjective
is yet to
as
be
a whole.
proved. How about that claim is yet to be proved, objective or not? Because objective things are things that are absolutely true.
No, you can have objectively false things. You can have an objectively wrong
Right.
claim.
I actually should say they're things that are absolute in the in like the positive end. Oh wait, so okay, now I'm understanding better. I was getting very confused. I thought you were saying like they're objective, like objectively true statements. I was getting confused.
Yeah, you can
So
have an objectively false statement.
yeah, that statement would be objective in a sense to and like at a point, not necessarily the statement itself being true.
Yeah, it's an assertion within a statement. Yeah.
So I'm confused how that applies to the concept of like subjective morality.
You could do the exact same thing.
Argument?
You could do the exact same thing with like a moral claim. So let's say say there's a pig that got stabbed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And say, or I'm saying that is the case. And then I ask you if that murder was like moral, and then it turns out that it didn't happen. Like that premise that the pig got murdered, false. I think I fucked up my words.
Yeah, I'm confused how that applied at all because it was kind of like the murder, like the statement of whether or not I think like stabbing a pig is moral can still be like can still hold.
There's an assertion. There's an assertion within the claim, that moral claim, that something objectively happened.
Yeah, I can say a theoretical. I can say like you can ask me a question of a theoretical in the objective sense, and I can still say like, oh yeah, I think it was right or I think it was wrong. Like it's entirely separated from whether or not the event actually happened. If we're saying that a pig was butchered, and you ask me if you believe it was right or wrong, I can still say that the butchering of pigs as a whole is wrong, so therefore that is wrong, like morally wrong.
Okay.
And whether or not it actually happened is entirely like separate from the nature of the event or nature of the moral claim. Sorry.
I think you're trying to like make a counter argument. Like I'm just giving you an example of an objective claim being made within like a subjective claim. An objective assertion, my bad.
So the objective assertion is
the pig was murdered.
Yeah, the pig was butchered, and you're saying that the moral claim on it is subjective?
Yeah.
So then that's just presuppositionalist. I don't see any basis in that.
Presupposition.
Yeah, you're presupposing that the moral claim is subjective in this instance.
Presupposing that it's subjective. I don't see why it would be, because like I don't think you could still find objective morality. I still think only subjective morality
I
exists.
explain why it's because things can be proven right and wrong.
Things can be proven right and wrong. Can you prove a moral claim correct?
Prove a moral claim correct.
I'll give you a claim. Stabbing random people on the street is wrong. Can you prove it's wrong?
Yeah, it imparts negative utility on the individuals that you stabbed.
That's still not objective.
That is objective. If you stab somebody,
No, that's just
it's
like a
going to
super
cause them
strong
to lose
subjective
blood.
feeling.
If you stab somebody, it's going to cause them to lose blood, could potentially cause them to die. If somebody dies, that is not going to be good for them. Correct?
Well, yeah, but none of
Okay,
that
so
speaks
that's
to whether
based-
it's like objectively right or wrong.
I think that entirely is based on like it being objectively right or wrong, depending on how it affects the
Okay,
individual.
how did you come up with
We agreed that like the basis
Nameless.
of the
How did you come up with the idea that it was wrong?
So again, we agree that the basis of the morality question was like how it affected a individual's physical and mental well-being. So
I don't
you
think
already placed objective.
Wait, when did I agree to that?
You were the one who said this. You were the one who like applied this to the whole thing at the
No,
very
I'm just saying. I'm not saying I actually believe the claim. I just gave you an example of a moral claim, and ask
No, that
you
was
to
quite
prove it
literally your
objectively.
argument. That was quite literally you like getting a standard in which we can measure it off of. So if you're
I
going
don't
back on
follow.
that, that's fine. We can discuss.
Where
like,
am I? Where am I getting this standard?
You said that the standard of what is moral is based on the like, the physical and mental well-being, like how a
Well, I'm
action.
talking about like my personal worldview. That speaks to me. I was only speaking to me at that point.
What do you mean by that?
Okay. I wasn't talking about other people. I don't know how other people think about it.
So if you're only talking about yourself, sorry,
Yeah,
that still applies.
I
So,
am very confused.
So you're saying that your basis of morality is entirely based on how something affects you, not anyone else.
I'll say that I'll prioritize myself over other people.
No matter what actions are enacted on the individual and how negatively it affects the other.
Given that there's some like negative utility that's going to occur to me if I don't like prioritize myself over someone else, then yeah.
Okay, so you're saying, let's take a hypothetical. You're saying that there's no limits to what what level of negative utility can be imparted on you, right? Or there's no limits of negative utility that can be imparted on others. If there's going to be negative utility imparted on you,
Well, it's not even about how much negative utility is
Yeah.
being placed upon being placed upon the other party that isn't me. It's just that
I know that like it
utility.
doesn't matter how much is. It's just whether or not like there is negative utility being placed on you, right?
No, enough to like ruin my life, and yeah.
Enough to ruin your life. Okay, so once again, I established kind of that like the basis of it ruining your life is based on your own inaction. So I'd say that's kind of like your own. The like fault wouldn't be on the pig; it would be on you, for one. Or that fault wouldn't be on the lifestyle; it would be on your inaction of like actually consuming nutrients. So I'd say that like
Hold on, it's not about nutrients. nutrients. It's about like taste and texture.
I know, but the reason it would ruin your life would be in large part due to your lack of consumption of nutrients. Also, because you wouldn't be consuming any, like, taste and texture, but also due to the lack of nutrients that you'd be acquiring. Unless we're assuming that you are eating the vegan diet, in which case I'm confused as to where this argument even exists.
I'm confused as to the direction you're going in. I don't understand why you're doing it.
Okay, so I don't know if there's like some miscommunication going on here.
I think there is.
Okay, so we are saying that the lack of taste and texture is enough to ruin
my life, yes.
And so let us assume that for whatever reason you have elected to, like in this hypothetical that I'm making, you have to go vegan or literally every other living thing that exists will die. Would you go vegan? Like, is there, like, you're saying that you would still not go vegan?
I think if every other living thing died, that would lead to a pretty horrible death. Anyway, so I'd say I wouldn't go vegan. Or well, actually,
Why would you?
I'm retarded. Let on pose that question to me again.
So again, the question is, because your basis of morality is whether or not there is a negative utility imparted on you. It doesn't matter how much is imparted on the other person.
Okay, yeah.
By your by your inaction. It just matters whether or not you're avoiding negative utility to yourself, right?
Okay. It ruins my life either way.
How does that ruin your life?
Going vegan, I lose the taste and texture of like animal products.
So that's not what I asked you. I asked you like, how does the the death of every other living thing ruin your life?
Oh, okay. So I literally don't get to interact with anybody anymore. Plus, I don't think I could eat anything either.
All right, then we'll say that it will cause the death of every other living thing except for your friends and family, and you will be supplied with enough non-vegan food to survive for the rest of your life.
I still think like my life would be like totally ruined because now
Why?
I'm like in society is pretty much collapsed at that point. I don't have like the internet or fucking anything.
So, what threshold needs to be passed before your life would be irreparably ruined
Um,
by the mass death of life?
threshold. That is a very hard question to answer. I can't lie to you. What threshold would ruin my life? I actually couldn't tell you off the top of my head, dude.
Okay. If you can't really tell me, then that's where I find the disconnect and the reasoning behind your argument. If you can't say exactly when the threshold would be would it be upwards of millions?
Millions as millions of what?
Just life on Earth.
Millions dying?
Yeah. Millions of living things dying.
I mean, when I wash my hands, millions of things die.
Alright, we'll say millions of sentient organisms to
Millions of sentient
specify
organisms.
it.
I mean, there's a lot of sentient beings that I want to die, like mosquitoes. Yeah, I want those things to die.
You think mosquitoes are sentient?
Well, I can't prove that, but I think they have a lesser level of
quantifies
sentience.
as sentience, right?
Oh, sorry?
You know what quantifies for sentience, right? Like
I think it's less.
self-awareness,
I
the
don't think you could
ability
have
to
like some
know if
objective
anything
measurement of.
exists. Well,
Sorry?
that's like the definition of sentience is the ability to be self-aware and acknowledge your own existence. Do you believe that mosquitoes are self-aware and acknowledge their own existence?
I think it's the sentience. I define it as the ability to view things subjectively.
And you think mosquitoes hold a...
To a way lesser extent, sentience, yeah.
So I guess I would simply argue that like you cannot prove that they are in fact like able to do that. Like I don't think mosquitoes are.
This is kind of
Never displayed
pretty
action
far.
of it.
This is like so far removed from the original argument. You wanted to say they're like human beings or something?
Well, I'm saying like sentient things are like creatures that are able to display actions that
Well, yeah.
like prove that they are aware and that they like acknowledge their own existence. Like animals can respond to their name.
Yeah.
They can be affected by the deaths of...
And you're asking me how many would have to die for me to feel a certain way?
Yeah. How many sentient organisms would have to die?
I'll say as long as it doesn't like affect like my functioning life, any number is fine. Let's say like hypothetically they're humans in some other galaxy. It can be any number of humans.
Could be any number of humans.
Yeah, just so they don't like affect my life. They live in another galaxy. So that's been removed.
All right. Man, we really did get far off of the fucking original point. I'm trying to like regain my train of thought.
No worries, dude.
Man, why did I go?
I'm not gonna lie to you.
I don't know why I always argue, like, why I always do moral arguments, because I always end up, like, straying so far from the original topic.
Yeah. I think the mosquito thing was, like, a pretty good example. I didn't think you would fight me that much on it.
Fuck. Would you be willing to pick this up tomorrow and, like, just to, like, completely regain, like, the center of the like, centering on the argument?
Literally just for that reason.
I mean, that and is late, but...
I mean, I'd be willing to pick it up tomorrow, but, like, I want to establish what you're lost on.
I'm just kind of, like, we're so far removed from the original argument, so...
Yeah.
I'm, like, really lost on the whole, like, concept of, like, how this actually connects to the original point.
Did I say earlier that I disagree that, like, tofu can necessarily taste like chicken?
Yes, you did. You disagreed that is able to substantially replace chicken.
Yeah. And then you said, like, in a certain way, but I said that wasn't good enough. If I didn't say that, I want to, like, get that out there.
They said that...
Just that, like, one specific method of cooking it is not a good enough substitution for meat in my diet. It's like whole.
Like, I would ask, like, have you tried that specific method?
Yeah.
Extra firm tofu.
I've tried like mock meat made of tofu. I think that's what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, it's not good enough.
Why is it not good enough?
Oh, I just prefer the taste of like actual chicken. and it's not like good enough to replace it.
Okay, which do you prefer more, chicken or beef?
Chicken.
All right,
But
so
I
let's
still want
assume
to eat
that
like
let's assume that
Bruh, you're a fucking loser, bruh. Beef is so much better than chicken.
if you
well,
were
it depends.
not allowed to eat chicken ever again, would you say that your life has been like completely ruined?
Yeah, my life would be fucked if I couldn't eat chicken, dude.
Oh man.
If it makes you feel any better, you put up way more of a fight than Ask Yourself server.
Dude, ask yourself his ask yourself is like fairly good, but his server is awful. You know what? I think I'm gonna just like collect my thoughts and get back to this tomorrow. So I'll just like end it for now. Yeah, we can just discuss this later, like tomorrow, if that's good.
Y'all done?
Yeah, we're done.
Alright, that was some good background noise, bro.
Oh, for me?